So last class we were on verse number 47. It's a very important verse, very popular verse, but often very wrongly interpreted, which leads to a lot of confusion. Let us read that verse. Again we will recap the meaning of that verse before we proceed. So let us chant the verse first. कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्मफलहेतुर्भूर् मा ते संगोस्त्वकर्मणि. So last class we had seen the meaning of this verse in detail. We will just again recap because this is a very important verse. If we understand this verse in totality, it is much easier to understand the whole teaching, because everything revolves around our action and our attitude towards the action. So here Lord Krishna says, Karmanye va adhikaraste. You have full control over your action. There is nothing stopping you. That is what we call as free will, because only humans have what is called as a free will. None of the other beings have a free will. Human beings can choose to do or not to do an action. For example, if a tiger or a wild animal is hungry, it will definitely go and kill whatever is available in front to satisfy its hunger. But a human being has a choice. If he is hungry, he can find some food, if it is possible, in a normal way, or he can even choose to fast. He can choose to skip a meal also. So that discretion is not available to any other being. So this verse tells you that Krishna says you have full control over your action. If you are clapping your hand, till you bring your hands together, you have a choice to stop wherever you want. But once you have clapped, whatever comes out of it is not in your control. The results are not in your control. So that is what he says, the action is in your control, but the results are not. Because the result giver, karma phaladata, the one who gives the fruit of the action, is Ishvara. So we have to acknowledge that there is a superior being to us who is watching all the actions. It's a universal law. It is applicable to every being, or specifically human beings, because the other beings don't have any karma. Their actions are purely driven by instinct. So there is no good or bad. It is only purely instinct. But since we have this discretion, that is why the act that we do, whatever karma that we do, has to be in accordance with the universal laws. So you cannot do an action without thinking. That is what he says. Because till you do the action, you have every right to think over whether you require to do it, in what way it should be done. Once you do it, you absolutely know the result is not in your hands. You have to leave it to Ishvara. The more we understand this, life becomes easier. Because all of us are result driven. We do any action for the result. There is nothing wrong in expecting a result, because without expecting a result you cannot do any action. What is the point in doing any action if there is nothing expected? So that is why this is wrongly interpreted, that do your duty, but don't expect the result. So that's the normal way this verse is interpreted. So there is nothing, all it says is you have no control over the results. Definitely your action, the more it is in tune with the universal laws, is bound to give you favorable results. It's not that all your action you do one in a particular way and the totality or the Lord gives you a completely different result. It is going to be in tune with your effort also. So it is not that your effort is, if only the Lord is going to give, then why should I do any effort? Why should I make any effort? So that is also not acceptable. Inaction is also not acceptable. For example, now the election process is on. All of us are now involved in the process of voting. Till we vote, we can use our discretion and choose the right candidate. So till we press the button, we can always change our mind even at the last moment. But we should use our discretion, we should use our free will. People around may give a lot of opinions, but ultimately we are responsible for the action. So once you press the button, after that you cannot say, I voted for this candidate, so that candidate should win. We have to accept, if our candidate wins, good. If he doesn't win, maybe the other one was a better candidate. We have to accept. So the same the Lord says, you do your duty. At the same time, like voting, we cannot say, okay, I don't like any of the candidates, so I am not going to vote. That is also not acceptable, because it is your right. And you cannot complain later that this person did not do this or that government did not do this. In fact, the people who complain more are the ones who never vote. We observe people who talk, they'll say so many things, this is not okay, that is not okay. But if you ask them, did you go and vote? They'll say no. So inaction is also not acceptable. Same with the candidate also. Till the end, there is effort, whatever effort is required he can put. He can visit all the areas, present his credentials to everybody, till the last moment, till the voting starts, or maybe there is a code of conduct. So 2 days before the voting starts, they have to stop the campaigning. Till that time they are allowed to do, he can put in full effort, he or she who is standing in the elections. But once the voting is over, they have to accept, because finally whatever results come, it is depending on so many factors. So our effort is there. Definitely the more the candidate puts effort, the chances of him getting more votes are better. And only if he gets more votes, he is going to win. But there is no assurance that he is going to win. So the process, like normally if we watch cricket and we follow Dhoni, so normally he says, if you do the process right, the result will follow. So first we have to do the process right. But having done the process right doesn't assure you that you will get the result in your favor. But without doing the process right, definitely the chances of the result coming in your favor are very less. So this is all applicable to worldly things. So when we talk about the Lord saying the results, He is aware of your mind in total. So whatever action you do, he knows the motive also behind the action. So you will get what you deserve, as simple as that, not what you think you should get. Everybody will think they deserve the best. There's nothing wrong in thinking, but then you will get what you deserve depending on the type of action, the attitude. More than the action, the attitude of the action is going to bring the results. So the Lord says, do your duty, leave the results to me. Accept whatever results that come your way as a gift from the Lord. Prasada. So whenever we go to a temple, we get prasadam. So whatever prasadam we get, each day there could be a different prasadam. Sometimes we may like what is being offered, sometimes we may not like. But when it is given as prasadam, we accept it and take it as a gift from the Lord. So that is what we called as prasada buddhi. So the more you develop this attitude, life becomes easier. Because if you are totally result oriented, you become either very elated or you become depressed. Ultimately, it leads to turmoil in the mind. So this is the basic meaning of this verse. So it's a very important verse. So it says, do your action properly. Think before you do any action. The more your action is in tune with the natural laws, the chances of the results coming your way as you want are very good. At the same time, there are so many external factors. So your effort will not go waste. At the same time, the results may not be what you have in mind. It could be something less or sometimes even more. Maybe sometimes we think, oh, I could have done better. But the Lord may think, oh, he has done good, so let him get a little more than what he thought. It happens that way also. But the results are, so the Lord says, leave the results to me. You do your duty, I will take care of the results. And it will be totally depend on what kind of attitude you have. So this is the gist of this particular verse, which is a very important verse, because if we understand the role of the Lord, because there are some people who think they control everything. There's a group of people who are called self-made. They think everything was done by them. There is nothing called a self-made. There are a lot of, we say, he's a self-made man. Of course, he must have put a lot of effort. But then without the Lord's grace, he cannot achieve what he has achieved. He or she, whatever they have achieved, is not just because of their effort. Without the Lord's grace. So if somebody thinks, I am self-made, I don't need any help from anybody, that person is arrogant. At the same time, sometimes some people think that, okay, the Lord decides everything, I don't have to do anything at all. That person is fatalistic. So we should neither be fatalistic nor arrogant. Do the duty as per what is required. Each of us have our own duty. Do that as required, but accept whatever result the Lord gives you as prasada. Now let us move on to the next verse, verse number 48. Yogasthaha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhaya siddhayo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. So the Lord says, Dhananjaya, Arjuna, remaining steadfast in yoga. And here yoga means karma yoga. So here now Krishna is talking about karma yoga. So having talked about jnana yoga earlier, so in this chapter as we see, it is a sort of a trailer to the coming chapters. So everything will be shortly given. It will be expanded. Now next chapter is called Karma Yoga. So Karma Yoga will be discussed in detail. Here is giving a broad outlook about Karma Yoga. So he says, remaining Karma Yoga, perform your actions without any attachment, accepting success and failure equally. So this evenness of mind is called yoga. Samatvam yoga uchyate. Equanimity is yoga. So the equanimity comes by taking everything in the same manner, whether it is success or failure. So here two things about Karma Yoga. The Lord says, one is Samatvam and other one is called Kausalam, which will come in the following verse. These are two very important aspects. Samatvam is equanimity. The attitude, basically the action doesn't differ. The attitude is what makes it Karma Yoga or a normal karma. If your attitude is proper, whatever comes, whether it is gain or loss, whether it is positive or negative, it doesn't affect you. Because only when there is a gain or a loss, the mind is disturbed. When there is a gain, people tend to jump. They tend to become excited, overexcited. And if there is a loss, people get depressed. People go into their shell. If we take 10 people facing the same situation, each of them will react in a particular way. Same, it could be the same situation. Some person, like something bad happens, one person gets depressed, another person wants to commit suicide, another person says, okay, it's okay, let me move ahead. Another person says, okay, this is all part of life. This time I failed, next time I'll succeed. So if you look at a section of people who have gone through the same experience, their attitude will be different. The one who maintains this balance is the one who will be able to handle everything in life easily. So equanimity. So all these things, see, ultimately Bhagavad Gita is not a subject to be studied for academic interest. We can just read the verse, read the meaning and move on. So we can complete the Bhagavad Gita, 700 verses we can complete in maybe a month or two. But just by going through the Bhagavad Gita, nothing is going to change. So the whole idea is to understand the action that is required from us, how we can put it to use in our day-to-day life. Without that, all these are meaningless. So that's why we should take a little time to, like the previous verse, is a very important verse. If we get the gist of that verse, if we are able to understand what Lord Krishna is trying to say, definitely it is not difficult for us to, at least to whatever extent possible, put it into action. So it's a process. So once you put the process in action, slowly the results will follow. But if we are only bothered about the results and we don't do the process properly, the results are not going to come in our favor most of the time. So proper attitude, because everybody wants only material gain. Nobody is looking at inner growth. The external growth will bring, definitely it may bring joy, it may bring prosperity, but it also may bring sorrow, for which we should be prepared. But if we do all our duties with inner growth in mind, so the loss or gain will not disturb us too much. Of course, you cannot say that I will not be disturbed at all. But we are working towards the process. To that goal, if we work, definitely over a period of time, the situation will not disturb us as much as it's even for a very learned person, a particular this thing may cause turmoil in the mind. But how fast you bounce back from that? So initial, some negative thing when you hear, definitely there will be a turmoil in the mind. So if you have samatvam, equanimity, you will bounce back in a very short time. Otherwise, you will continue to dwell upon that for a length of time, and you don't know how long it will take for you to come out of that. So that is why the more you focus on inner growth, the more you will be able to handle any situation easily. It's only a shift in the attitude. So mental balance is because of appropriate focus on inner growth. That is called as samatvam. You continue to do your duty. Let the results come, handle them. If you are totally focusing on the result, definitely you will not be able to handle, because the results are always going to be up and down. And any action, there is a risk. So that's what we have to be. So there is no action without a risk. But if your attitude is proper, you will be able to manage that. Even crossing the road is a risk. Sometimes you end up in a hospital. In fact, one of our college mates, if you remember a few years back, just crossing the road, he lost his life. So even that is a risk. So whatever actions we do, there is a risk. But if your attitude is proper, if you have the right kind of mental balance, which comes from, again, everything is connected. If your action is appropriate, then mental balance will automatically happen. If your action is to do the right way, without completely focusing only on the result, whatever comes will definitely be more or less in tune with your action. So you don't get disturbed, your mind doesn't get agitated, you accept the result that is given to you, accepting that is what you deserve. So this is the another aspect. This is the first aspect of samatvam. So equanimity is karma yoga. Let us now proceed to the next. Verse number 49. Durena hyavaram karma buddhi yoga dhananjaya buddhau sharana man vichha kripana phala hetavah. Here, continuing on karma yoga, here Krishna refers to karma yoga as buddhi yoga. So in each context, the same can be put in a different way. Buddhi yoga. Buddhi means intellect. So when you do any action using your intellect with proper attitude, it becomes karma yoga. So Krishna says, Arjuna, seek refuge in karma yoga or buddhi yoga. Those who perform actions only for the results, he calls them as misers. Kripana, a miser. So action based on the result is far inferior to the action performed with proper attitude. So again, Krishna is trying to emphasize the attitude, because everything revolves around the attitude. So generally there are two types of karma. One for material accomplishments, the other one for internal growth. The first, the one who does for material accomplishments is called as a karmi. So his aim, her aim is to gain materialistically. The second type is purely for internal growth. So that is called as karma yoga. So that first type, they get elated after success and they also get deflated after failure. So this type of karma is far inferior to the action which is through karma yoga. So like I said here, he refers to karma yoga as buddhi yoga. So buddhi, intellect. So when you use your intellect properly, it becomes karma yoga. So that is why it is called as buddhi yoga. So he says a miser, those who don't do that, those who do the first type, they are called misers. Now who is a miser? Someone who doesn't have any money cannot spend, he cannot be a miser. Someone who borrows and spends, he can only be a spendthrift. But a miser is one who has everything, but he neither spends on others nor on himself. In fact, after he dies, the others enjoy. But he must have lived his whole life in misery trying to protect his wealth, neither spending for people around him nor for himself. We must have come across some people like that in our day-to-day life. They will at least, even if they spend for themselves, it is good, but they will neither spend for themselves and of course not for others. So Krishna says the one who doesn't use his intellect is also a miser. Because you have been given this intellect, a wonderful instrument for your internal growth. If you waste it for external growth, you are no better than a miser. And a materialistic miser, when he dies, at least others enjoy. But here, your intellect, if you don't use, neither you enjoy nor you can leave it for others to enjoy, because it is within you. So he says, don't be a miser. As a human being, you have been given an intellect for inner growth. That is the first thing we need to understand. Otherwise, if we go about life enjoying all the materialistic things, and suddenly one day we find there is no goal in life. As we grow older, we are neither able to enjoy the materialistic things nor able to enjoy the wealth that we have accumulated. We spend all the wealth going to hospitals and meeting doctors. So, if we use our intellectual wealth properly, inner growth will happen, which ultimately will lead to liberation or moksha. So, do any action, accept the results that come, work for your inner growth, enjoy everything. There is nothing that prevents anybody from enjoying anything. If you have wealth, enjoy it. Spend it on yourself, spend it on others. There's absolutely, if you have earned it properly, you can enjoy it without any guilt. Unlike the politicians and other people who have, there are a lot of people who say, oh, those fellows are enjoying, they are roaming around freely, they are making so much money. Nobody stopped any of us from doing that. Why don't we do that? Because we know it is not correct. He has to pay for whatever his deeds. So let us not worry about what they are doing. They are not getting caught, they are not, okay, maybe the man-made laws have loopholes through which they escape. But ultimately, the universal laws will catch them. If not in this Janma, partly in this Janma, or in the next Janma, or in any of the following Janmas. So, if we think, okay, this is one life, after one dies, there is nothing else, that's your choice if you think so. But if you understand the process, you definitely know that there is going to be further lives. But the choice is there if we want to get out of that cycle, which is by gaining knowledge. And for gaining knowledge, you need to prepare your mind. And that is what Karma Yoga is all about. So everything revolves around ultimately gaining knowledge, but preparing the mind, the attitude you build through Karma Yoga. So prepare the mind through Karma Yoga, get knowledge through Jnana Yoga, and go get moksha. So you don't have to worry about lives to follow, because you don't know what kind of lives we are going to get. Purely dependent on the karma. So, but the choice is here and now. It is not after death. Okay, after I die, you will go to heaven or you will get a better life. All those things are on paper. You don't know. Could be true, need not be true. But here and now, karmanyeva adhikarastha, you have full right over your action. Here and now, you do the right action with Karma Yoga attitude and gain liberation here and now. So that is totally in our hands. So this is what Karma Yoga, which we will continue the next verse in the next class.